Father, in 1996, you wrote a book called Inside the Vatican. Nearly 20 years later, what has changed about the Vatican since you wrote that book?
Well, of course, when I wrote the book, Pope John Paul II was still Pope,
Right.
and Cardinal Ratzinger was in the Congregation for Doctrine of the Faith. Since that time, of course, Cardinal Ratzinger became Pope Benedict. That was a major change, a whole different personality as Pope, someone with a different style of being Pope. But for the most part, the same position on issues and on substance. So we had a lot of continuity between the two papacies. The second big change that has occurred is that we've seen a lot of division. You know, we've had these Vatican leaks, leaking papal documents since my book was written. And we find that under Pope Benedict, the Roman Curia was very divided. There were people who did not like Cardinal Bertone, the Secretary of State. So this is a big difference. These two differences that we can see since I've written my book.
Before we move on to the next papacy, how do you believe the papacy of Benedict XVI will be remembered?
Oh, I think he'll be remembered as a teacher. This was a man who was a theologian, an academic, a German professor, and he took very seriously the role of the Pope as teacher. So his writings, his encyclicals, those were what were really important for him.
The press, of course, is filled with stories of scandal, of the clergy abuse story that never seems to go away, Vatican leaks that you just mentioned. How does that all impinge on this conclave?
Well, I think that the cardinals from outside of Rome have been reading all these stories about divisions in the Vatican Curia, about allegations of financial corruption and things like this. And, you know, they're upset. They say, hey, what's going on in the central office? You know, and they're coming here and saying, hey, we need to have a pope or who can get this under control, or at least who will appoint someone who will get it under control. The sex abuse crisis also is a big issue hanging over this conclave. Certainly for the American bishops, this is a big concern. They want someone as Pope who will support the zero tolerance rule that was put in by Pope Benedict, namely that any priest involved in any sexual abuse of a minor is going to be thrown out, is not going to be allowed to be a priest anymore. They don't want any backing off of that, and that's very important for them.
Let me put you on the spot. If you were one of those cardinal electors, how would you rank the issues facing the church?
Well, the most important thing that the church needs to do is to figure out how to preach the gospel in a way that is understandable and attractive to people in the 21st century, especially to young people who just are turned off by the church. I mean, the message of Jesus Christ is very attractive. He himself, as a person, is very attractive. And sometimes our churchiness gets in the way of getting that message out. You know, his message of love, of concern for the poor, of justice, of community. This is an attractive message, and we need to figure out how to get it out to people in the 21st century.
That segues into my next question. Europe, most particularly, but increasingly in the United States, the people are becoming secular. Europe is, you would argue, is largely, maybe almost totally secular. How do you turn that around?
Well, that is the big challenge. I mean, the church in Europe has been in trouble since the 19th century, when it was on the wrong side of a lot of political issues like freedom of speech, freedom of press, the Enlightenment, things like that, so that it lost most men in Europe. Women kept going to church because they weren't as politically active in those days. But then then this was a big problem. This is the big challenge that I think the church faces. How to re-evangelize Europe and how to stem the flow of people out of the church in North America and Latin America. Big challenge. And I think that this was something that even Pope Benedict recognized and tried to respond to. You know, one of the things he said was that the challenge is to present Christianity not as a series of no's, like a nagging parent. No, you can't do that. But as a series of yes. yeses, because it's a yes to Jesus, a yes to the gospel message, a yes to love, to justice, to concern for the poor. And these are attractive things that sometimes our churchiness gets in the way of people seeing.
This is the question I'm sure you're tired of. Any idea who would be the person to meet that challenge among the papabile?
I have no idea who's going to get elected. I think, what they're looking for, I think, are three things. They're looking for someone they think can be pope. Each cardinal is asking, who's the best man to be pope? Now, that often means who agrees with me, who agrees with the cardinal, But the second thing they're looking for is someone that they can have a good personal relationship with. If you can't be pope, you want your friend to be pope because he'll listen to you. You'll be able to influence him, during the next papacy. And the third thing they look for is someone who will be well received in their own country. That's important. Tip O'Neill said all politics is local, and that's true in the Catholic Church. There are local issues that are important to each cardinal. For example, the American cardinals want someone who's strong on sex abuse, that would be very much in favor of the zero tolerance. But someone from a Muslim country, for example, would be very concerned that the Pope who's elected, understand Islam. Because if he says something negative about Mohammed or Muslims, there could be blood in the streets. Churches could get bombed. People would die. So each cardinal from his own region may have his own particular issues he's concerned about.
Father, we will watch the chimney with great care. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.